Well, for tonight, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be, some epic journey in so much that we're going to be generating completely new, fantastic characters from whole cloth. What I wanted to do this week was we make our one character. In fact, that is over here, Velma Dilly-Dilly that we made last night. We brought her to life as we do our other characters. We discussed who she is, what she does, her personality, and what I wanted to do was to show an exercise in how you can have the same character but different. For you as a PC, if you have a favorite theme, maybe you can still switch it up while still being the elven cleric you love. Give me some cheesy elevator bossa nova, please. Shoot, you know what? I'm sorry. Tabletop audio doesn't have that yet. Although, you know what? If you ask him, LZ, he might make elevator music. For those awkward times when your group of vampires is infiltrating, like the tower of the leader of the Sabbat, and you have this epic showdown ahead of you, but you got to get in the elevator and ride up 50 floors to get to his office. There's or you know what you also reminded me of? What's it called? Alzy, synthwave, vaporwave, something like that. It's supposed to be like trippy remixes of generic mall music that you hear. From like the late 80s kind of a thing. Shoot. Why is it... It's escaping me what that theme of music is. It's something along those lines anyway. But hey, sometimes even those intense moments still need maybe a little bit of a comedic reprieve, right? You have the... you have your big... vaporwave. Yep, vaporwave. But you get your coterie of you got your Bruja, and you got this Nosferatu who is getting ready to like summon the swarm of bats up to the 50th floor, and you have this Toreador who's very beautifully smoldering with generic rage, and this is going to be the epic throwdown of all time with the Sabbat, and you just gotta wait in an elevator for a couple minutes listening to the music before you get up and the fight begins. Alright, now you're just being lazy. That was the extent of the claw, I'll have you know. Look. You put it right here. You put it right here, and I'll play with you. You gotta teach him these things. Yeah, exactly, Alzy. It's a very Guardians of the Galaxy kind of gag. So, what I wanted to do tonight was take Velma Dilly-Dilly and let's change her one step at a time. And we can either do so incrementally, or maybe in our first part we'll make a couple different iterations of Velma Dilly-Dilly. And then when we take a break after, I don't know, an hour or so, then we'll come back and maybe we'll do that kind of... that game of... Google Translate, where you type in a phrase in English and then you translate it to Chinese, and then you translate... then you go and you put the Chinese phrase in Chinese and translate it to English, or you put like Chinese over to French, and then you put French over to I don't know, Afrikaans. I guess isn't that related actually? Because isn't Afrikaans a derivative of French? Anyway, you get what I'm saying. Thai, and then by the time you come back around to English. It's sort of playing a game of telephone, and you're like, wow, look how far we've come from the original message. And so I made a very handy-dandy chart. Oh, is it based on Dutch? Okay. It might be. I mean, the Dutch were very active in that region at that time of colonialization and so forth. But there we go. We're getting some culture here, right? It's not just all rolling dice and wearing elf ears. I mean, we could do that too. I actually feel bad because I don't have a set of elf ears, and I should probably get some. During our Curse of Strahd game on Thursday that just came to an end, 2, 3, 4 of my players, I think, had elf ears on. Yes, thank you, Dutch colonists, for the worst accent in history. Hey, Diadems! Good to see you. Welcome. I hope you had an awesome Friday. I mean, Alzi to you, but of course you live in the future. It's already Saturday for you, you weirdo. But Forsaken, Diadems, and any other lurkers, I hope that you've had a good Friday. What I really should grab is the laser pointer and just spin her in a circle for a while. That wears her out. She just sort of like lays down and is like, and she looks at me like, oh, that was a good run. And you just see her chest moving in and out there. Alrighty. So how can we take this concept? Well, let's explore Velma Dilly-Dilly first to refresh ourselves. And then we'll change some aspect about her and see how Velma will keep her name. And, you know, we'll keep other aspects of her. But how could you take the same character but also make it different? I have the Weekend Almanac from the future. I made millions during betting on weather since it was a nice Friday. Ah. And yet here we have a bunch of windstorms. When I was driving around playing the Pokemans a little earlier before broadcast, there was a lot of branches that were down and such. And of course, too, you're getting leaves starting to scatter. Well, I mean, up here in our hemisphere, autumn is upon us, and you're seeing leaves blow across the street, starting to gather around gutters or in lawns. It's getting there slowly. We're having beautiful days, but the trees know what's coming. Alrighty, let's see what will we do to Velma Dilly-Dilly. Roll a d8 and find out. 8. Oh, snap. Alright, so we're going to roll 2 aspects of Velma instead. 3 and 2. So her gender and a possible multi-class, and we're going to swap her background. Alright, so iteration 1, gender, and background. Now, as we know Velma, she is a female mountain dwarf, berserker barbarian. Her background is that of a charlatan, specifically one whose favorite con is using sleight of hand tricks on street sides and corners in order to dupe people. You know, get money, play 3-card Monty, that kind of a thing. She keeps multiple holy symbols on her and invokes whatever deity might come in useful at any given moment. Flattery is her preferred trick for getting what she wants. Actually, did someone ask yesterday if flirting was her thing? I don't know if she necessarily flirts, but she does it to manipulate people. Maybe it was if she's very provocative in her flirting. She might give flattery, but I don't think as we generated her, she necessarily was an overtly sexual character. Hi. Are you going to say, don't step on my keyboard, please? Ma'am. Well, here's a cat. Where's your ring? And she's gone. Right off the other side. Her ideal is creativity. She never runs the same con twice. So she does like to challenge herself. And maybe, look, maybe she does understand that she's not the brightest crayon in the box. But it's her way of challenging herself. Maybe she was never good with numbers. Maybe she never learned her histories. But that doesn't mean you still can't have a character with you know, some savviness, some creativity. She sees things in a unique way that others don't, because she doesn't have the standard complement of intelligence. Forsaken is back. Meow meow. Yes. Now she's crawling all over. I wonder if she didn't find the ring, and that's why she was up here thinking that I took it. Well, that's on her. She's a cat. She can find it. Her bond is, I swindled and ruined a person who didn't deserve it. I seek to atone for my misdeeds, but might never be able to forgive myself. So, she does have a good heart. She does impulsive things, hence chaotic good. Her flaw, I'm convinced that no one could ever fool me the way that I fool others. So, she is very haughty. You know, because she generates all these tricks, well, clearly no one can pull one over on old Velma Dilly-Dilly. What was really nice, too, for the exercise I wanted to do this week, because by default she was a charlatan, we're almost creating different kinds of identities for Velma. Right? So her first one is going to be possibly a different gender. And a different background of some kind. And with this, I'm going to re-roll, and we could even get a multi-class character. Although I guess really, I guess if we start with a female character and we re-roll into a female character, could that be compelling in some way? Maybe then it would just be a swap. A swap or a multi-class to then go into a male. Let's give that a try, right? Okay, no spells, right? She's a barbarian. Pretty straightforward. She's a young adult at 92. Not exactly tickling 5 feet tall. But she also does have a good amount of bulk to her at 190 pounds. So what we're going to do with iteration 1 of her identity, let's make our base of is a chaotic good female mountain dwarf barbarian berserker 6 charlatan number 5. Just doing some simple copy and paste. And then we had a stat line of 16, 14, 8, 10, and 14. And then she was proficient in deception, intimidation, perception, and sleight of hand. Cool. Let's make this bigger for you all. All right, so we're going to change Velma Dilly-Dilly into a... Well, let's roll for it. On a 10% chance, she's going to become a multi-class character, which is sort of, I guess, will be its own extension of things. 43. Okay. So, Velma, as this Iteration 1, is going to become a male Mountain Dwarf Barbarian Berserker. And for his background, will be a 13. That is background number 12, which instead of an urchin is a soldier, if I recall correctly. Let's double check in 4. Yes, a soldier. And particularly, you have 8 different specialties. Let's roll a d8 and find out which it is. Number 1. Ooh, an officer at that. Rocks fall, everyone dies. Die falls, everyone rocks. Yeah. So it's Grumpy Cat. Oh, snap, you got a burn on your hand. What happened, Forsaken? Alzy, where are we going to find running water? It could be anywhere. Oh, he did? Oh, snap. What was he doing? The curse is spreading. Everyone, mind your fingers. Okay, let's look at the background is going to be 6 and 3. Ideal, bond, and flaw. 441. Hot oil splash on you while you're cooking? Oh, no. Hey, X-Cat. You want running water? Just say boo to a water elemental. Cooking is the natural predator of humans. Yet we have this... We have this love-hate relationship with it, Alzy. Oh, he picked up a hot plate? That'll do. Okay, so load into your mind the concept of Velma Dilly-Dilly that we started with yesterday and today. We rolled that we're going to swap her to be a male, and on top of that, instead of being a charlatan, we're keeping Berserker Barbarian, we're keeping Mountain Dwarf, we're keeping the cat at good alignment. All of that is staying. In fact, we can even keep her skills as a Barbarian, which was Perception and Intimidation. And now let's see what Velma Dilly-Dilly, the male soldier, the officer soldier, chaotic good, Mountain Dwarf, Berserker Barbarian level 6, who he is and what he does. Even though it's it's all but the same character, right? And look, for a lot of you out there, This you probably get that this is these are rhetorical questions or that this is practice, but it's also fun to imagine and to see the impact by just doing it. That changing one, or in this case two aspects of a character, what that could mean. Hey, Django Reinhardt never let a few burnt fingers stop him. You don't play guitar, but it's not in your dominant hand. Oh, well, is that going to interrupt any more painting that you have to do, Forsaken? We can keep the stats. However, it would seem that we're going to be changing up the skills. Because as a soldier, we get athletics, intimidation. And then as a barbarian, we took intimidation, so we're going to have to find a replacement for that. But we did keep perception as a barbarian. And so we'll look into something else to replace intimidation. Our tool proficiencies would change as well. So instead of a forgery kit and all that, we would have a gaming set proficiency, and we'd be good at vehicles land. In fact, we can even put that here. This was a forgery kit, disguise kit, and mason's tools, but that's for being a dwarf. So here would be a gaming set. Oh, pardon me. Land vehicles. And we're still maintaining that Velma is a mason. His personality traits are 6 and 3. I enjoy being strong and like breaking things. I've lost too many friends, and I'm slow to make new ones. By the way, the Deer Centaur person I sent you, you're probably going to try and make a playable race. I think that would be a good challenge for you, XCat. I'm Forsaken. I'm looking for work, so if anyone needs minis painted, you can message me on Discord. Yeah, while you did post pictures of your miniatures in the talent market, Forsaken, you might want to make an ad saying, you know, you can contact me. These are the things that I tend to specialize in, and so on and so forth. You know, make like a blurb about yourself and how people can get a hold of you. Oh, yeah, I know, international shipping. Oh, why must there be oceans separating us? We'll just have to invent teleportation. Yep. All right, his ideal is number 4, might. In life as in war, the stronger force wins. That is evil, with the that the PHB says, and it could be if taken to an extreme. This is simply one facet of a multiple-sided personality. So just because the PHB says this is an evil ideal doesn't mean you have an evil character. You know, take a look at Armstrong from Full Metal Alchemist. In life as in war, the stronger force wins. I think Armstrong would very much agree with that. I also believe that Armstrong isn't an evil person. Okay, no problem, XCat. We're good on that. We're starting to harness quantum entanglement in computers now, so maybe teleportation one day? Wouldn't that be a thing? It was kind of interesting watching the Enterprise series because transportation or teleportation wasn't quite a thing yet. And watching them figure it out and experiment was interesting. All right, 4. I'll never forget the crushing defeat my company suffered or the enemies who dealt it. And lastly, his flaw. The monstrous enemy we faced in battle still leaves me quivering with fear. Okay. Now we can we see that we've effectively made a very different character from the original Velma Dilly-Dilly simply by changing up these aspects? In fact, let's go, because we need to replace one of her barbarian skills here that wasn't intimidation. Animal handling, athletics, intimidation, survival, perception, nature. Well, let's see. I enjoy being strong and breaking things. We already have athletics. I've lost too many friends. I'm slow to make new ones. I'll never forget the crushing defeat. Well, you know what? Look at our charisma at 15. I mean, I guess it's technically wisdom here. But if we're the type to... It's not that we can't be friends. Maybe we know a lot of people. But to count them as friends would be difficult for him to do. Instead, we could go perhaps animal handling. New Monica says, howdy, Brahmachari. Then there's the whole, is your teleported self still you? Oh, yeah. Because your original's destroyed, and then supposedly an exact copy of you is made. You know, there's that whole incident with having that second Riker hanging around. Not so much of a question depending on the mechanism. As I recall, teleport in D&D funnels you through dimensional wacky space, allowing instantaneous transit. Crushing defeat of our company. She worked for digital homicide. Oh, snap. Awu is kind of here. Is Kitty still visiting you? Is she distracting you? Very high school. Well, so was it work was high school drama? As in your coworkers and managers? Or the fact that you actually had a bunch of high schoolers at the resort being high schoolers? Okay, so here, look. Velma Dilly-Dilly. A male mountain dwarf barbarian. Who is was or is still an officer in a military branch. Athletics, intimidation, perception, animal handling. All of this. I enjoy being strong and breaking things. That's a lot different than this barbarian, even though they're both barbarians. They're both mountain dwarves, and they're both named Velma Dilly-Dilly. Their stats are the same. Yet, look at the completely different character that we've made. A book can be written in two places, but if the words are the same, they're the same book. So if there's an exact copy of you, you are both you, says XCat. Alzi, or as in you are literally a high school theater teacher. I guess that would be an option if she were. Hey, TJ, good to see you. Por qué no los dos? The book doesn't have self-awareness. In order to teleport yourself, person A needs to be willing to die. Stops being true 1 second after one of them starts living. Diadem says K? Dark Wolf, I'll be listening in a bit, but not really paying attention. Okay, yeah, Kitty's here. No, I got you, Dark Wolf. I still appreciate you coming by. We're getting into the philosophy here, everyone. The deeper questions. Well, yeah, then we can get into, different realities might split or branch, or was everything supposed to be this way the whole time, and so we're really just wasting time worrying about split dimensions when everything just is as it is. Big Joe Reed is now here. Welcome. Thanks for popping in, Joe. Think you have to be a very committed person. I'd be okay letting my clone live if I had an important job to do. However, like I say, teleport in D&D transits you from point A to point B. Yeah, in Star Trek, which is what we were talking about, your body is broken down into energy and then reassembled on on an atomic level in the location that you were going to be at. Oh, TJ, are we going to get into the sandwich alignment chart? Because that is a thing. All right, so here, same character but different. In fact, based on the history of the background, a monstrous enemy we faced in battle still leaves me quivering with fear. Which also dovetails, that flaw dovetails into the bond. I'll never forget the crushing defeat my company suffered or the enemies who dealt it. This person... This iteration, right? We're talking about splitting people through teleportation or transportation or whatnot. Something happened to Velma Dilly-Dilly. And when she manifested again, she was a he and made a quantum leap from a charlatan barbarian into an officer, a soldier officer, that faced crushing odds and is still alive for it, who believes in force, and maybe isn't so conniving, is much more direct. So let's say that Velma Dilly-Dilly here, whether that this is an iteration, a moniker, or if we're going to play a game of RP Quantum Leap. Iteration 2. Velma did whatever needed to be done in the body of this person. And we're going to... We're going to take this same concept and we're going to see what changes next. Let's roll 1d8. 2. We're going to change backgrounds again. Alright. Velma Dilly-Dilly is still going to be a chaotic good female mountain dwarf barbarian berserker 6. Though instead of a charlatan, instead we're going to be 9. 9 is an Outlander. Okay, let's pop over to Outlander. Here we are. Birds can fly, but flies can't bird. Hashtag stay woke. Is this basically Velma and Morty now? Velma from Faerun 380-6. Well, kind of. The point is, we can make the same character differently and have them be their own unique characters with their own lives and circumstances. So it's to help illustrate the point that I might want to run a barbarian in our party, Alzy. You might want to run a barbarian in the party. In fact, both of us might even say we want to be a mountain dwarf barbarian because of that awesome strength and con bonus. And yet, we have a natural tendency as role players to say, well, someone else is already being a barbarian, let alone a dwarf. Or a dwarven barbarian if you pineapple pen them together. And that it doesn't have to take any role-playing off of the table for you. Maybe in this world, the weird spell might become a real boy if it kills its original and the person's fear is of the self. Velma's weird was a different version of Velma, and it killed her. And in that 1 in a million chance, became a real boy. Background Outlander, you make people swoon in your sexy kilt. Are you talking about the romantic novel time travel series, Elsie? All right. Now we have athletics and survival, as well as perception and intimidation. We're going to be important. That's what came off of our barbarian. Now, in our original, we did look as a charlatan for the perception and intimidation. And this is only going to further prove that just simply by changing one aspect of a character, it will have an entire ripple effect across the entirety of it. As I don't want to go through every iteration with all the minutia, I just want to make sure we're getting the point across, and we're having fun imagining these different Velmas. And what happens is she's, quantum leaping between bodies, or as her original is a charlatan, that these are all different disguises. These are different facades that she puts forward in all of the lands in which she travels. In fact, we've almost made, you could say, like a Velma Dilly-Dilly is kind of like a trickster god, right? You travel from place to place, assuming different forms, setting things in motion, participating in points throughout history. No, Elsie, you used my logic against me, my only weakness. Hiss. Instrument and a language. And of course, we'll get some different equipment, starting equipment. What would be the trophy of a prized kill? No, the slippery slope has begun. In particular, the type of Outlander she'll be in this iteration is a forester. A forester who wanders by virtue of being an Outlander. This Velma's personality is as follows. Well, 4 and 4. I guess we're just going to have to re-roll this. There we go. 4 and 7. 1, 5, 6. All right, personality trait numero uno, which is numero cuatro. I have a lesson for every situation drawn from observing nature. And 7, I feel far more comfortable around animals than people. Her ideal is 1. Change. Life is like the seasons, in constant change, and we must change with it. Number 5, her bond. I suffer awful visions of a coming disaster and will do anything to prevent it. Outlander Barbarians Gone Wild. And her flaw is 6. Don't expect me to save those who can't save themselves. It is nature's way that the strong thrive and the weak perish. Did you bring the ring? I don't have anything to throw you. Oh, it's over there. Yeah, this one time at nature camp. Kind of. A capitalist barbarian. Although in so much that she's more... If a kind of a green movement were not just environmental, but also this like primitive or capitalistic version, yeah, that I think that would be her. And so now this Velma Dilly-Dilly, still a chaotic good female mountain dwarf barbarian berserker 6, though the only thing that's changed is that she's an outlander. She's a forester. She's someone who... Hey. No. Yeah. She's someone who makes a living off the land, protecting the woods. You know, maybe she even owns a... maybe she even, like, manages some acres of woods. And, or, you know, she wants to be a part of some lumber operation, but make sure that it's not just a hack and slash or a slash and burn, but, you know, they plant acorns behind them, etc. and so forth. Grassroots capitalism, says TJ. So, a portion, although we could argue all of her skills would change because of this, because of her personality. But let's just keep the barbarian part still there with perception and intimidation. And we gave her athletics and survival. She's someone who can give lessons. She's someone who I think she is aligning up very well with this expression of herself through this chaotic good or this impulsive selflessness. You know, she wants to help people. She wants to advise them. Meanwhile, Velma Dilly-Dilly, the original, is a con artist. Iteration 1 of Velma Dilly-Dilly was a soldier who commanded people in armies. This Velma Dilly-Dilly is now more of a loner. She doesn't choose to live among society. She might live among animals, or she might live among the trees. You know, she's interactive, she's social, but she's not looking to command people or dupe them. More of an environmentalist libertarian, I guess. Yeah, that sounds a lot like it. So, in this iteration of Velma Dilly-Dilly, simply by changing her background, this is now the person we have. You know, from the kind of shady, from the shady, you know, street magician, turned into an officer in the army, now turned into an Outlander. Hey, One Crit, good to see you. Hey, Roger Twy, also good to see you. Welcome. Maybe she's a berserker like the Incredible Hulk and lives alone so she doesn't keep punching the dwarven grandmothers. Or punching out. Yeah. And in this, Roger, you brought up a good point too. Whereas up here, her barbarian berserker might have come from the fact that she's very urban, right? She's a charlatan. She lives around people to pull tricks. She lives in cities. Well, as a barbarian berserker, that could have been, as we were talking about, maybe she studied at some sort of a wrestling gym or a boxing gym or something along those lines. And so she might use her rage, her barbarian abilities, in self-defense because someone didn't take too kindly to being scammed by her. Or she's made, I don't know, a gang enemy or something. You know, we look here, and a barbarian berserker who is an officer. You know, here we could have someone who, over here, I should say, over here, has fought hard, right? My company suffered this crushing defeat. The monstrous enemy we face still leaves me quivering with fear. That could have gone on to inspire that berserker, right? Because you suppress fear as a berserker. And so this could have been something that was picked up in training. The barbarian aspect, right? Of channeling your frustration and your power. Armies are good at two things. Killing people and breaking things. Barbarians are pretty good at killing people and breaking things. And so the berserker aspect of iteration 1 came in the fact not for self-defense or a way to intimidate people during a con, but this came as a result of service in a fight or die situation. And then we come over here, and what you said, Roger Twy, maybe she's this berserker barbarian because she has a short fuse. You know, she has anger issues. And so living out in the wilds is what helps keep her calm and focused. Kind of like what you might be listening to well, shoot, I haven't had the music on. Wait, where's my music volume been? Okay, yeah, there it is. If you've been hearing it in the background. The gentle breeze, a crackling fire, a horse going... The lone awoo every now and again. That could help keep her calm. But when she loses her calm, she flies into a rage. Whoop. Love was changing the minds of pretenders while chasing the clouds away, says One Crit. XCat, what was the breakdown for making a race, by the way? Was it +2, +1 for stat buffs and racial abilities? There's a couple different examples, XCat. Humans get +1 to all, or they get +1 to 2 different abilities, and then a feat, which could kind of be a third stat bump of a +1, and then some skills. You look at half-elves, and they get +2 charisma, and then +1 to 2 other skills. Not skills, +1 to 2 other abilities. Then you look at, I think Mountain Barbarian, or Mountain Dwarves are the only one that get a +2 and a +2. So, they get 4, like the half-elf, but they get 2 that are locked in, whereas the half-elf gets a 2 that's locked in and 2 that are floating. And then you have some which don't even have sub-races, and so they're locked into a +2 to 1, +1 to something else. And then you have others that'll give you a +2 to 1 as the base race, but because there's sub-races, they'll give you a +1. Hey, If Live, welcome! Diadem, so despite all her rage, is she still just a rat in a cage? Yes. Her cage is the forest. I'm kind of getting flashes of TLJ Luke. Jaded hermit lives out of reach of society and festers in regret. Even, and by the way, you brought up another good point, Alzy. While there is a background of hermit, there's nothing that says an Outlander can't be a hermit. Maybe not mechanically, but you could describe that character as living a hermetic lifestyle. All right, let's take a quantum leap. Where is Velma Dilly-Dilly going to end up next? How will this same character have one thing changed and be a completely different person because of that? 4. Race and sub-race. All right, let's go back up to our vanilla stats here. I backed off her mountain dwarf stats, and then we'll fix it appropriately. All right, so we are still going to have a chaotic good female something barbarian berserker 6 who is a charlatan that runs cons on the street. Therefore, the skills are going to remain the same. The background, the forgery kit, everything here, with the exception of what are her genetics. Let's roll a D. We'll roll a D10. It's technically a D9, but you get what I'm saying. 7. Velma has been reborn as a half-elf. Velma Dilly-Dilly. Chaotic good female half-elf barbarian berserker. Alright, if we do this, this might change up more than just her, that might do more than just switch that up. I mean, she could be a barbarian with a super high charisma. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, we can even say, so she had a 15 starting, she would have a 17, and we drop the other ones into strength. By being a half-elf, this is going to give her +2 charisma starting off, and then +1 to something else. Well, she does run sleight of hand still. Dexterity is probably going to be important. And she is a barbarian, so strength is going to be important as well. If Live says, I managed to play my first D&D game over Roll20 the other day. There's a lot to learn. If there is a lot to learn, but don't let it intimidate you. Enjoy the journey, not the destination. I'm definitely still learning stuff on Roll20, despite now having run a weekly game on it for several months. And even if it's not the interface or Roll20, if it's just rolling or running D&D, every game is different with every play group. In fact, what we're doing here is a good example practice of that. You can have the exact same group, and one player has to drop out, and a new one comes in, and that can redistribute the dynamic within the entire party. I mean, we've had that happen now twice in the group on Tuesdays, and you can see what happens. And yeah, you don't need to know it all at once. Hey, Daniel! Oh, you just got the dragon heist? I hope that you enjoy it. No spoilers, but if you want to talk about like fun or flavorful stuff, by all means, you can throw it out there. Oh, Pneumonica, you did get your minis? That's awesome. I hope that... sorry it took a minute to see that. I hope that they serve you well. You have 2 very unique minis. I'm sure you can create a fun story with them. Okay, so with this, if we put the... Maybe we put the 15 here. 14 con. 13 dex. 12 charisma, so she can still deceive and you know, and use her intimidation. Probably still have an 8 with intelligence and a 10 in wisdom. So that much may change. So this is then going to give us a 14 charisma, a 14 dex, and a 16 strength. And then because we rolled that she took an ability score improvement instead of a feat, we can drop that in somewhere and say, well, she keeps multiple holy symbols, flattery's her preferred trick. I never run the same con twice. I swindled and ruined someone who didn't deserve it. If we want to make her stronger, boom, 18. Do we want to make her more dexterous to play off of her sleight of hand? Or do we want to round her out with a higher perception, right? For being a half-elf. Because being a half-elf is showing... by the way, because of that, she's going to get an extra skill and not Mason's tools. So we can give her something else. This would also change her size and her weight, too. She still has dark vision. She would get Fey ancestry. You have advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and magic can't put you to sleep, all the more reinforcing her flaw that she feels she can't be duped. Oh, and we're going to get 2 skills. Okay, then let's take a look at Barbarian Berserker Charlatan. What would this version of Velma take? I want to say she would take Persuasion. She might go Persuasion and Insight. That way she can read people better. Or if not Persuasion, then Performance. I guess that'd be something that you could talk to your DM about. You know, would a con require sleight of hand, perhaps? And or could it require Persuasion, perhaps? Deception, perhaps? But for being a half-elf here, why don't we give her... she does flatter people. I mean, that could be deception, depending if on what she's doing. Let's give her Persuasion and Insight. So now, what does that speak to this iteration of Velma Dilly-Dilly? You know, she's trained a little bit more. She's honed herself a little bit more. Also, her height and weight have changed. She's physically different. Whereas in the other ones, she could still feasibly be the same height and weight. So if we look here, half-elves. They start at 4'9", and we're going to add 2d8 inches to her height. 13. So that's 5'9", 5'10". We're going to take that same 13 and multiply it by 2d4. So 3. We're adding 39 pounds. She's 149 pounds. So not only is she taller, she's lighter than our dwarven version of Velma Dilly-Dilly. And what could that then mean? Could people maybe not take her as seriously as a barbarian berserker because of her svelte or her more svelte features? Could that mean that instead of as a dwarf, maybe in the background having to keep up with taller people and working out, her graces, her height, or some intrinsic partial elven blood opened her up to these other skills that the other iteration of Velma Dilly-Dilly just didn't have the time or effort to be able to accomplish? In the case of in the case above, where her low intelligence might be playing into her flaw, along with her bond of I'll never run the same con twice, and I'm so full of myself that no one can ever fool me. This version of Velma Dilly-Dilly, the almost exact same version, might be drawing inspiration for that haughtiness in her flaw from her Fey ancestry. Well, my blood protects me versus charms, and I can't be put to sleep. It's difficult for someone to pull one over on old Velma Dilly-Dilly, the chaotic good female half-elf berserker barbarian level 6. Charlatan number 5. Oh, yeah, Alzy, rip thick Velma. Well, but hey, if you like elves, right? If you like elves, do you like half-elves? I imagine. If Live asks, would a sorcerer be too difficult for a first-time character? If I don't believe so. No. You get some options, kind of like what Alzy talks about. There's some things to track, but oh snap, Megatron! Thank you. Are you looking for a box? I presume. But if you're starting at level 1 or a low level, there's not a lot to keep track of, and so as time passes. As time passes, you'll get more options, but you'll have the chance to use them and practice them. What are you doing? Hi. Welcome. All right, Megatron. Are you looking to get a figure out of Monster Menagerie or a figure out of Dragon Heist? Which one would you like, sir? Yeah, she wants to play D&D, I guess. Well, she wants to play Fetch. And the ring is over here, so maybe she's trying to get my attention. With my robot hand. That's right. Did you all know I have a robot hand? We're playing Cyberpunk now, boys and girls. Go get it. Need an electroshock device attached to Maddie to notify him of chat. Yeah, sorry if I got on a... I'll go up and scroll and see what we're doing here. So yeah, Daniel got the Waterdeep book. I love a good heist. If there isn't a good train sequence, I'll be adding one, says Alzy. Hey, yeah, have fun with it. Megatron is in here. The art is very beautiful, says Daniel. I've always been a fan of Blink Dogs. I kind of want one IRL. I want a Displacer Beast, and someone else down below says I want a pet phase spider. Look, they're all kind of the same thing but different, right? So you just have a Pokemon battle to find out which one is which. Funny story about the minis. I had just gotten my custom cleric mini on Wednesday and Thursday. Yeah, and the character died. Well, I mean, you could use him in other instances, or he'll be a memory for time to come. The characters may have died in Curse of Strahd, but that doesn't mean that you might not ever get a chance to replay him in some point later. So don't throw away your character, Megatron. You may have a chance to dust him off every now and again for purposes. If you have trouble keeping track of spells, there are some good free mobile apps. Exactly, Alzy. Daniel, I want to play in a campaign with you. Well, when the Tuesday game cycles, if that's a day and a time that's free, I will be opening up. A thread, and I'll be asking for people who want to participate to step up and fill that gap. Alzy says, "Rip thick Velma." Yes. You want a Dragon Heist Megaton? Not Megaton. I had Fallout on the brain. But let's pop open. Yeah, Cat Hype. She's very hyperactive. She wants to play Fetch. If Life says, I think I have a cool concept in mind. I'm wanting to make a deep gnome sorcerer. His reason for leaving the Underdark is to expand on his abilities or something of that sort. And, you know, that works out well because gnomes, like the Svirfneblin or the Deep Gnomes, are traditionally not evil Underdark denizens, despite where they live. They might just have a, you know, a bad reputation in some form or fashion. Alright, so let's pop this box for Megatron Riker, and then we'll take a break. And then we'll see just what will happen to change our poor Velma Dilly-Dilly as we change one thing at a time instead of referring back to the original, but let's take a couple steps at a time and build from there. Alright, so Riker, let's take a quick look at your box, good sir. We are going to start with a City Guard with a spear. After that, we have Mert, who's kind of like a mercantile, looks like a swashbuckler. Very fancy dress. Mert. After that, ooh, we have a slithering tracker. A slithering tracker. And lastly, Megatron. You have a large uncommon piece out of your box here, which is a crocodile. Apparently, it has active camouflage, but a crocodile. There we go. So let me know which piece out of that box you would like to keep. The Drowned Duragar making everyone think all Underdark denizens are evil. Well, there's a couple other people who live down there that give them a bad name too, but yes, the Svirfneblin have managed to not be evil on the whole. I don't have access to Roll20. Is that a problem? It would be if you want to play, Daniel. I definitely want to play a gnome, and a deep gnome sounds fun. Plus, they have a fun racial feat where you can get a sort of an intrinsic spell. It's cool. You've played as a Drider before. If any PC is evil, it's that one. Oh my. Hi, did you get it? Yeah, but it's all the way over here. Alright, so Riker, you have a crocodile you could choose. You have a slithering tracker. You'll keep the croc, and how do I get that to Roll20? Oh, how do you get a crocodile? Well, I mean, how do you get the crocodile? I mean, if you're running the game and you're throwing this against your enemies, you just roll the dice with its stats. Unless you're talking about something else. I'm sorry if I'm confusing something, Megatron. But alright, I'm going to hold this off to the side for you. And make sure to let me know if you want me to hang on to this and build a collection, or if you just want me to take it down to the store the next chance that I get so you can pick it up. Where'd my markers go? Are they buried under bubble wrap? Yes, they are. Megatron's box. You meant the Roll20 thing? Oh. Oh, gotcha. You can play Roll20, I believe, on a mobile device. And it's also just a website, too. There we go. Alright, so let's take a 10-minute break, everyone. And when we come back, let's continue our exploration as we take Velma Dilly-Dilly through different bodies and different concepts, and how we continue to illustrate how the same character can be made in seemingly vastly different ways by only changing up one aspect of it.